7 years lost in addiction, along with two devastating medical diagnoses, kidney disease and liver failure, seemed like the end of everything. But no one expected that from the very depths of despair, a new person would be reborn. You weren't a kid born into darkness. Your family wasn't broken. You had friends who once admired you, and your youth burned bright, just like anyone else's. But everything changed because of one moment of curiosity. Just this once. That's what you told yourself at 17, the first time you touched heroin. You thought it was an escape, a way out of school pressure, a break from the emotions you didn't know how to name. But what you didn't know was this. The moment that needle touched your skin, it didn't just take your blood. It began to drain your future. What once gave you a temporary high quickly became your chain. You didn't use it to feel good anymore. You used it to stop the pain, to stop the shaking, to keep your body from seizing in the middle of the night. Your body became a hostage, and your mind slowly rotted under the weight of a hunger no one could see. The years that followed, a blur of regret. You dropped out, lost your job, sold everything. From your phone and laptop to the motorbike your mom spent a year saving up for. But worse than all that were the lies. The lies you fed the people who loved you most. "I'm fine, Mom," you said with bloodshot eyes and trembling hands. "I'm just tired," you muttered to your girlfriend, forcing a smile as you hid a little baggie in your coat pocket. From a young man with a future, you turned into a ghost of your own life. No one believed in you anymore. No one dared give you another chance. And then came the overdose. You were rushed to the hospital. That's when the photo on the left was taken. Eyes shut, lips dry, skin pale. Doctors turned to your mother and said, "If he overdoses again, we can't promise he'll survive." And still, you didn't stop. Addiction wasn't a choice anymore. It had swallowed both your body and your mind. When every door slammed shut, you started to believe maybe you were born to die young. Until one day, everything changed. You were sitting in a freezing rehab center staring at a piece of paper in your hand. It read, "Diagnosis, stage 2, kidney disease, severe liver damage." Oh, and in that moment, you didn't think about drugs. You didn't think about getting high. The only thing running through your mind was this: would I live long enough to make this right? And that was the first moment after years in the depths of addiction that you truly wanted to live. Not to escape, but to come back. He didn't walk into rehab with hope in his heart. He walked in with the raw instinct of someone standing on the edge of death. The diagnosis, kidney disease and liver damage, was the final blow, slicing through any illusion he had left. When there's nothing more to lose, that's often when people start fighting with everything they've got left inside. The first week was hell. His body revolted without the drugs. Trembling, cold sweats, vomiting, a pounding heart that felt like it might burst. Some nights he screamed from the pain, gripping the bedsheets so tightly his hands bled. Once, he even saw a hallucination, his mother crying at the foot of the bed. But when he opened his eyes, it was just the sterile white ceiling above him and the moans of others who were just like him. That wasn't recovery. That was a rebirth. Everyone in the facility had their own story, their own kind of pain. No two were the same, but they all shared one thing. They had once traded everything they had for just one more high. Every morning began with a simple reminder, you're still alive. And it was only when he felt that truth that he finally began to want more than survival. He wanted to truly live. There was an older nurse, the first person to look him in the eyes without judgment or pity, who said something he would never forget. No one can save you but yourself. But if you start trying, we won't let you walk this road alone. For the first time in years, he felt seen. He started writing a journal. Every day, he recorded what he felt, physically and emotionally. Each entry was a small war, but gradually, he relearned how to love the little things. A morning full of sunlight, a breeze coming through the window bars, a meal that didn't make him gag. He was placed under special medical monitoring because his kidney and liver conditions were still precarious. But strangely, once the heroin was gone, once his cells stopped being poisoned daily, his body began to respond. His test results were still dangerous, but they had stopped plummeting. After 4 months, he could enjoy food again, After 6 months, he began doing light exercise each morning, and by month 8, his doctor gave him news that made him both cry and laugh like a child. If you keep living as clean as you are now, your liver and kidneys still have a chance to recover. No transplant, no long-term hospitalization. But there's one condition: you can't ever go back. He looked straight at the doctor and replied with just one sentence: "There's nothing left to go back to. I only want to move forward." From that moment, he knew. The past was no longer where he belonged, and even if the future was still uncertain, it was worth walking toward, step by step, one solid breath at a time. Leaving rehab, he carried no luggage, just a stack of medical records, a journal filled to the edges with scribbled thoughts, and one promise to himself: don't go back. But the outside world wasn't like the center. Out here, no one asked if he was shaking today, or if the cravings had returned, or if he'd had nightmares again. They just looked at him, with eyes that already held a verdict: addict. He applied for jobs. 9 places turned him down in a single week. No one wanted a man with a record of heroin rehab and liver and kidney damage, a man who had once stolen when in withdrawal, who had been named in a police report. Clean now, negative on every test, even armed with a recommendation letter from the head nurse at the rehab center. None of it mattered. Every conversation ended the same way: "We don't have a place for someone like you. Sorry." He understood. But that didn't mean it didn't hurt. That kind of rejection. It felt like society had erased him. Like his past had been framed and hung around his neck for the world to see. Impossible to take off. He once asked himself, are these really my only 2 options? Death or a lifetime of disgrace? He wanted to give up. He thought about disappearing, starting over in some other city where no one knew his name. But then, flipping back through his rehab journal, he found something he'd written during one of the worst withdrawals. If you survive the craving that tore through every cell in your body, don't let someone's words be the thing that kills you. The handwriting was shaky, but the words hit like a slap. So, he began again, this time without needing anyone to understand, without hoping for forgiveness. All he wanted was to no longer hate himself. He landed a job as a kitchen assistant at a small diner, owned by a man whose son had once battled addiction, too. The man didn't ask many questions. He just said, "If you can work, I'll keep you. But if you slip, you're gone." It wasn't sympathy. It was a chance. And he gripped it with both hands. His days began at 5 a.m. and ended well past midnight. The smell of grease, the sizzle of frying pans, blistered hands from washing dishes and hauling trash. But he'd never felt more alive. Every paycheck, even the smallest one, was proof he didn't need heroin to survive anymore. He stopped hiding. Slowly, he returned to social media, sharing pieces of his story. Not to convince others, but to remind himself, I'm still walking forward. And then, something unexpected happened. People started messaging him. Some were old classmates, some total strangers. Some were still struggling with addiction. They wrote, I used to think I could never be clean, but you made me think again. He couldn't respond to them all, but every message reminded him. This journey wasn't just his. Every step he took might be a footprint for someone else still trying to find the way out of the dark. His life, after years of drowning in darkness, had now become a string of quiet, ordinary days. Wake up early, head to the cafe, chop vegetables, mop floors, wash dishes. After work, he'd go home, stretch through a few exercises, read, and write in his journal. No more withdrawal, no more blood, tears, or screaming in the middle of the night. But the thing that surprised him the most was that this peace was enough. Enough to make him feel like he was finally living right. Then, one morning in early October, his phone rang. It was the hospital, the one where he'd been going for regular checkups for nearly 2 years. Nothing unusual. He was used to liver tests, kidney function checks, blood panels, monitoring every biological metric like he was living on borrowed time. But this time was different. The doctor, the same one who had been reviewing his chart since the very first day he left rehab, greeted him with a warm smile and a thick folder in hand. We've reviewed all your results from the beginning of this year until now, the doctor said, and I have something very important to tell you. He sat there, palms sweating. Part of him was afraid, because once you've brushed shoulders with death, you never really stop bracing yourself for bad news. But the doctor only spoke gently, each word deliberate. like he wanted them to sink in and never be forgotten. Congratulations! You are officially in remission. You no longer need any medication. Your liver and kidneys have recovered to a stable level. On one condition, you continue living exactly as you are now. He didn't speak for a few seconds. Then, as if someone had flipped a switch, his tears came rushing out. Not from fear, but because, for the first time in nearly a decade, he felt like a healthy man. A whole man. The doctor hadn't handed him a miracle. He had handed him a truth, that the human body, no matter how damaged, can heal. If you're patient, if you stop hurting it, if you believe you are worthy of life. That day, he didn't run out of the hospital. He didn't jump or shout. He walked slowly, feeling every breath, every ray of sun on his face, every honk and rumble of the city, like the entire world had become 100 times more precious. That night he reopened his journal. The last page he'd written in rehab was scrawled with a question. Will I even live long enough to see myself healthy again? And now, underneath that question, he picked up his pen and wrote, I did. I'm here. No meds. No fear. He posted a photo of himself, the newest one. His face was glowing, hair neatly trimmed, and his eyes finally met the camera without flinching. Next to him was a stamped hospital report that read, Remission confirmed. The post received hundreds of shares. One person commented, I'm starting my own detox. Seeing you gives me hope. Another messaged him privately. Thank you for not giving up. You made me believe I can get there too. But the most meaningful part to him wasn't the recognition. It was this simple, profound truth. His body had forgiven him. And now, he was learning to forgive himself. When he walked out of the hospital that day, he knew his life had entered a new chapter. Not just a fight to survive, but a journey to live with purpose. But what surprised him most wasn't that his liver and kidneys had recovered, or that he no longer needed daily medication. It was something far quieter, something he had never felt before. For the first time in his life, he no longer felt like he owed himself a debt. For years, he'd lived with guilt, for wrecking his body, for lying to his family, for throwing away every chance others had given him. But now, with his health declared stable and his mind no longer a battlefield, he began to learn something no rehab, doctor, or medication could ever teach him: how to forgive the past and choose to live forward with gratitude. He didn't chase recognition, but somehow his story began to spread on its own. His before and after photo was shared by addiction recovery communities, health forums, and online groups for former users. Many called him a living miracle, but he only smiled and replied gently, I'm not a miracle. I'm proof that miracles happen when you don't give up. From an anonymous kitchen assistant, he was invited to speak at the very rehab center where his transformation began. At first he hesitated, worried his voice wouldn't be strong enough, that people still in pain wouldn't believe in a happy ending like his. But eventually he stood before them, those who were struggling along the same path he once walked, and spoke with a simple, unpolished honesty. No sugarcoating, no glamour, just this. One day, you'll wake up and realize it doesn't hurt anymore. But to get to that day, you have to keep enduring today. The same man who once screamed through drug withdrawal now stood calmly in a room full of hurting souls, speaking with steady eyes and a steady voice. He had become something he never thought could exist, a person who had fallen but wasn't buried. He began rewriting his old journal entries into short blog posts. Some people read them, some quietly saved them, some shared them with captions like, I'm on day 3 of withdrawal. You're the reason I'm pushing through to day 4. Though not everyone will recover like he did. He knew that. Some relapse, some don't make it, some lose hope. But if his story could make just one person stay put instead of going out to find another fix, then some part of that dark past had been transformed. He didn't ask to be praised, didn't need to be called a hero. What he chose to do every single day was simple. Wake up, eat a healthy breakfast, go to work, talk to those who need to be heard, and live a quiet life. But, unlike before, this time he was no longer running away from himself. Survival was no longer about just existing. It was about living in a way that felt deserved. And when someone asked him, what kept you going when everyone else let go? He smiled and said, "I used to think I had died, but it turns out I was just asleep inside my own fear. And now I'm awake." If you've made it to the very last seconds of this story, thank you, not just for listening to my journey, but for giving someone who once hit rock bottom the chance to be seen, to be heard, and to believe that the past is not a life sentence. I'm not sharing this story to gain pity. I'm sharing it because I know, somewhere out there, someone might be curled up in the dark, fighting through withdrawal. Someone might be sitting alone on a cold porch, abandoned by family, friends, and the world. Someone might be thinking about ending it all, not because they want to die, but because they have no idea how to start over. If that someone is you, please remember this. You are not useless. You are not disposable. And you have every right to live a new life, no matter how dark your past has been. Don't let someone else's judgment close the door to your own rebirth. Don't let old wounds keep you from a future that might heal you. I won't tell you the road ahead will be easy, but I will tell you this: it will be worth it. And you deserve to live long enough to see just how strong you really are. That brings this story to an end. If it meant something to you, please leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe. It gives us the strength to keep creating more stories like this one. Thank you for listening. Take care, and see you next time.